Mr. Raj, thank you for joining us. So I wanted to ask you a couple of questions that my friends and my fellow colleagues have posted after seeing your previous video, and they have not gone through the course, so they are completely new to the concept of aloha and happiness as such. So yeah, let's begin with the very first question. How come a business school professor landed up teaching a course on happiness? I'm sure you would have heard it.
Yeah, a lot of people ask me this question. Actually, when they realize that I'm in the business school and I'm teaching a class on happiness, they do like, what? How did you get to do that? Part of the reason for that is because I think that people intuitively don't associate business with happiness. They think of business as achievement and running after money and success and being stressed out and all that, and that makes people unhappy, right? But I think that if anything, happiness is an important topic. Particularly for the business school people, because lots of studies show that the happier you are, the more productive you're going to be, more creative you're likely to be, more collegial you're likely to be, and so on and so forth. But anyway, your question wasn't that. Your question is, how come I'm teaching a class on happiness? I realized that business school people who are very driven and often achieve lots of success and are also pretty wealthy, and they're of course smart, often are not as happy as they could or should be. And I noticed this within myself too, to be totally honest. Even though I had a lot of achievements on paper, I wasn't necessarily a very happy person at that point. And so back in 2007 I decided to do something about it, which is to offer students an opportunity to talk about happiness and among their peers. Everybody talks about happiness at some point or the other. Usually it's with friends, relatives, maybe well-wishers or even religious leaders, and I felt that as a scientist, as a researcher, this is such an important topic. I'm kind of shirking my responsibility by not taking it on and leaving it to other people to answer this question. And so I decided to put this course together. This was back in 2009 when I first started teaching, and since then it's really taken off. I expected to teach maybe 1 or 2 years, but it took on a life of its own, and from that course material, a blog came out, and the blog became a book, and then I got an opportunity to teach this class on Coursera online, which has over 215,000 students now from every country in the world. Yeah.
Amazing, that's so great. So one of the very first things which you talk about in the book, also in the course, is the Genie question. That is one of the favorite questions that I also love reading it. So as per the survey, the people have not chosen happiness in the top 3 things that they ask from Genie. Usually it is money or health or relationship. But what I personally felt when I was confronted with that question, happiness was not on my list. All these 3 things were there: money, happiness, money, relationship, and health. But what I gave a justification to myself was, when I'm asking these things, I'm asking happiness because I genuinely feel these things bring me happiness. So how do you say that happiness is not in the list when, as a respondent, I think I'm asking for happiness when I ask for those things? So
yeah, I have a 2 or 3 part answer to this question. The first part of the answer is this, right? Let's say that I'm going to use a kind of a physical metaphor here. Let's say that your destination, you're traveling, and your destination is New York, right? Would you get a ticket to London because it happens to fall on the way to New York, or would you get a ticket directly to New York? Probably directly to New York, because that's where you want to ultimately end up, right? In a very similar way, if your end goal is to be a happy person, why ask for intermediary things? Because there may be some things that you don't know about happiness, right? Maybe getting great health and maybe making a lot of money is not enough for happiness, right? You're going to leave out some things that are also important to be a happy person, like, for example, a great attitude towards life, right? We know that money doesn't bring people happiness. A lot of people think that, and some research has actually shown that that's true. And so by asking for money, even though you might have a strong belief or an opinion that it is definitely going to lead to happiness, you may be wrong. So why make that error? Why take a chance? If happiness is truly that important to you, why not directly ask for it? That's my question. The second part of my answer is that this seems to be many people's first explanation. When I ask them, why is happiness not on your list? They'll say, well, I ask for those things that lead to happiness. But that I don't think is the true reason why people don't ask for happiness. I think the true reason is it just doesn't occur to them to ask for happiness. And I know this because when I follow up the Genie question with a very small, simple sentence, And the sentence is, remember you can ask the genie for anything and everything, including happiness. The number of people who ask for happiness shoots up, right? Just as a reminder, prompts them into thinking, oh yeah, wait a second, that's what I truly want. And there is an insight in this. The insight is that as we go about our daily life, we seem to forget about happiness. We ask for all those other things, or we pursue all those other things that we think should lead to happiness. At one time, maybe they did lead to happiness, but we get so fixated on those things, those means to happiness, that we forget about happiness itself. So this is very, very important to remember, that happiness should be a priority. And similar to how other goals, if they are not priorities, you're not likely to achieve them. In a very similar way, happiness too, if it's not a priority, there's a good chance you're going to sacrifice it for other things. So that's the point I was trying to bring out in that genie question.
Yeah, that clarifies a lot of things, because we really don't prioritize happiness, and it is never it's never in our awareness majorly because of so many other goals. So. Okay, so also in the course we learned that kids are very naturally drawn towards prioritizing happiness. They know how to be truly happy, but somewhere when we grow, we just kind of prioritize other things. So is there anything that we as parents or teachers can do to raise a happier generation? Can we do something?
I think absolutely we can do a lot of things. I think the first thing that we ought to do perhaps is prioritize happiness ourselves. It's one thing to tell kids what to do, another thing to behave like you want them to behave. You can say, don't look at the TV, don't look at the electronics, don't look at the cell phone, but if you're constantly on TV and electronics and cell phone, that's what they will learn. Okay, so the first thing to do is to prioritize happiness yourself. And once you do that, I think the messaging that you send out to the kids will naturally be aligned with giving happiness a higher priority. I'll give you a simple example, right? If you do not prioritize happiness, let's say that you prioritize other things like success or being superior to other people, things like that. If your child who's maybe 5-6 years old goes and plays a game of cricket and he comes home and you ask him, a question about the cricket, if you're prioritizing other things like superiority, then you might ask him, did you win the game? That might be your first question. Okay, and the second question might be, okay, how much did you hit? How many wickets did you take? Etc. etc. Okay. Instead of those questions, somebody who prioritizes happiness might ask a different set of questions. Did you have a good time? Right? Were you a good team player? Did you help other people succeed well, and so on and so forth. So just by asking a different set of questions, you can prioritize different things in the child's mind. And that's what I would say you should do, is to remember that in the end, what truly matters for us is not that we have super rich and super famous and everybody's kind of constantly wanting to be our friends and so on and so forth. What really we want is something that we enjoy doing, at least one or two good friends, right? And some degree of freedom to do as we please, which of course involves some money and so on and so forth. We have these kind of things, we are more or less set, other things can move the needle a little bit, but this is the core. Once we have these things, then we are all set. So we don't need a whole lot. If you remember that, then I think your messaging to the children will be more aligned with prioritizing happiness.
Okay, so let's come to this school of thought, which I was introduced at a very young age. I think again it has something to do with the upbringing, which says do what is good to you and not what is liked by you. And part of it was from this concept saying that delay your gratification. Like exercising, I'm not happy when I exercise, but that's good for me, so that's why I do. So how does prioritizing happiness and delaying gratification go hand in hand?
That's a great question. I do think that there are some activities, some things that you have to do for the sake of future happiness.
Yeah.
Tal Ben-Shahar, who was a professor who used to teach at Harvard University, has something called the hamburger model. You don't, when you're eating hamburger or any food for that matter, you don't want food that is only healthy or only tasty or not tasty or healthy. You want food that is healthy and tasty, right? And there are many things in the world like that. When you're eating food, for example, fruits, many people find them to be tasty. I think a good hot chapati with some dal, even mentioning it is making me hungry right now. Okay, it's healthy, more or less healthy, and quite tasty, right? Egg, boiled egg, is quite tasty and healthy. So you want to first do the things that come naturally to you, that you find to be enjoyable. So even exercising, you said that going to the gym or exercising, people do not like. That's not true, I think. I think that I like to play a game of cricket. I like to have a nice, good game of volleyball, for example. I enjoy doing those things, and those are exercise. I actually personally also enjoy going to the gym, even though I may not think that I'll enjoy it just before I go to the gym. But once I'm in the gym, I do enjoy it. Everybody likes to push themselves a little bit and learn and grow and so on and so forth. So you have to remember that. That having been said, I do think that there are some activities, some things sometimes you have to do, even if you don't enjoy it, for the sake of future enjoyment. Okay? Either because you've taken on that as an obligation, like for example, I'm teaching. Every single day I don't enjoy teaching. But if I've committed to teach today, I have to teach even if I don't enjoy it right now. Why? Because I've obligated, I've committed for the sake of the students, for the sake of my own future self, to get re-invited again to come and teach at ISB or wherever. I have to go and do this. There's a saying in the show business: the show must go on. The show must go on. Sometimes that's there. The other instances in which I do think that it's worthwhile sacrificing present happiness for the sake of future happiness is when in the process of doing that, you're learning something or growing in a way that makes it more likely that you get more future happiness. Like for example, if you have a concert coming up and you have to play the piano or you have to practice a song, you may not feel like doing it, but for the sake of being a good performer in the future, you have to practice right now. Okay? So in the book I talk about flow states, and flow states are enjoyable, but for you to get into a flow state, you need to have some skills. Right? Otherwise you're not going to get into a good flow state. In order to build the skills, you have to practice, and sometimes the practice is not enjoyable. But for the sake of future flow, you have to practice now. Now, when you ask me this question, on the occasions when you have to sacrifice present happiness for the sake of future happiness, like I said, I agree with you. Yeah, there are many occasions. What I would say though is that if you look at a lot of instances when people are sacrificing present happiness for the sake of future happiness, it is not because they've taken on an obligation necessarily or because they want to increase future flow. Often it's because of greed. I want to make so much money in the future. I want to rise up so high in my organization. I want to be so famous. Okay, it's motivated by that desire to sacrifice present happiness. And if you do that, then you risk falling into a rat trap. Because if you do achieve that wealth or fame or whatever, then it's not as if you're going to now relax and say, okay, that's done, now let me focus on present happiness. No, after that, there'll be another round of that. I want to be even more famous, I want to be even richer. Absolutely. So when you do that, you fall into the trap of the goal keeping on moving all the time, and you're never in the present, always planning for a future that never arrives. Okay, and that kind of what's called hyperopia, right? Focus on the future as opposed to myopia, which is focus on the present, is bad in my opinion. Sometimes it's better not to be so hyperopic and better to be myopic or focused on the present happiness. Most of the time, I would say, I don't know, if I have to throw out a number, 60-70% of your time, you should be enjoying right now, right? Only about 30-40% of the time, really sacrificing enjoyment for now for the sake of the future.
Okay, so the last thing I would want to ask you is the abundance mindset, which is the right way to achieve MBA. A lot of people have difficulty understanding this mindset itself. What I've been asked is, if I'm not able to fulfill my needs, how is it that I'm supposed to say myself that there is a lot to go around, there's a lot of money, there's a lot of love around, and to be in, because there are people who have been introduced to this idea of law of attraction, mainly by Rhonda Brand's The Secret. So they have tried and tested, but it really never worked for them. It feels like I'm deceiving myself by saying that, oh, everything is alright, money is coming my way, abundance is coming my way, but I truly don't feel that. So if I'm not in a very good state right now, say financially, how is it that I still take my abundance mindset, but I do not feel that I'm deceiving myself?
Yeah, so look, the abundance mindset, and in fact, almost all the content of my book and my recommendations are aimed at people who are relatively well off, relatively successful and so on. So if you're in fact struggling for basic needs, then I would say that I agree with you that it's difficult to adopt the abundance mindset. But my book is really targeting people who are smart, successful, so in a sense they have access to basic necessities. Not just that, they've gone beyond it. Okay. So if you're really suffering for lack of basic necessities, I agree with you.
So I'll stop there for a moment. So what happens is, what we define as need, the people who I'm talking, they're not really struggling with basic need as you defined. they're pretty well off. They have a stable job, 3 times good meal, good house. The thing is, what they desire is often they confuse it with their need. Like for example, if I want a bigger car, I define it as my need. I really need a big car because my neighbor has one. So,
what you're really talking about here is a want.
Yes.
Okay, and that's where it becomes a bit of a subjective call, I would say. I can't tell you, okay, Narita, with your life, you really ought to have an abundance mindset, okay?
Yes.
Because it has to be internally generated. Some external pressure, and because of that you adopt it, is not really going to work. Now, it turns out that if you look at the correlation between objective life circumstances and subjective perceptions, some people are there whose objective life circumstances are characterized by abundance. They have a lot of money, they have a lot of fame, they have a lot of achievements, and so on and so forth. But inside their head, they feel they don't have enough. Okay, there was an article that came out in 2014 in the Atlantic, where they summarized research based off of interviews of high net worth individuals. Okay, these are people with over $25 million of net worth, right? That's a lot of money. And one of the biggest fears that these people had is, I don't have enough money. Okay? Now, you're talking about your friends who are over basic necessities, okay? So you're saying that, okay, they don't feel abundant. Okay, let's see at a higher level of richness, if somebody is feeling abundant. And you go all the way to among the richest 0.1% of the population or 0.00001% of the population, and they don't feel abundant. What can I say? You have to have that feeling internally generated. Okay. At the other end of the spectrum, there are some people who live in slums of Calcutta or slums of Mumbai who feel abundant. They don't have anything. They feel abundant because if you look at their action, they share whatever they get, and they don't have that much of a worry of when their next meal is going to come from. Even though actually there's some uncertainty around it. They don't have the money. They don't have food, but some neighbor comes and gives them something. Somehow they manage, right? So in the end, if you're waiting for objective life circumstances to reach a point beyond which you're going to get this abundance mindset, I think you're maybe waiting for a time that's never going to come. I'm reminded of the story about Bill Gates, who went to an airport once and did not have change or money to buy a newspaper, and there's a black boy working there, and he just handed the newspaper saying, "Don't worry about it, it's on me." 2 months later, the same thing happened. Again, the black boy gave it to him, and Bill Gates said, "No, I don't want to." He said, "Don't worry about it. I make some extra money, and it's okay." Then, like many years later, when Bill Gates became rich and famous and everything, he came by the same shop, and he said, "You remember me?" And the black boy said, "Yes, I do remember you. You're Bill Gates. You're the famous guy." So Bill Gates said, "I'd like to return the favor. You've been very, very nice to me all these times. And so what do you want? Ask me for anything, I'll give it to you." And this boy said, "Well, when I gave it to you, I was poor. Okay, and I had to dig deep to be generous to you. Now that you've achieved wealth, you're asking me what I want. I don't think it's the same thing. So I don't want anything." Okay? So that's the idea. That some people, it's good that some people at least become abundance minded after they become rich. It will be worst case scenario if even after that they don't become abundant. But I would say that you can start in your own small way now. Abundance doesn't mean that all of a sudden you become the sadhu and you say that, okay, take anything you want and all that, Just in your own small way, just push the boundaries a little bit. If you have never donated anything to any charity ever, try a little bit. 10 rupees here, 10 rupees there, that's it, 5 rupees even, right? And then you discover that, look, that didn't really pinch, that didn't change my lifestyle, nothing happened. I continued living. In fact, I felt a little bit happy that I was able to do it. Next time, maybe make it $20 or 20 rupees, and so on and so forth. You find your own limit. I can tell you from my personal experience that operating from abundance, which doesn't necessarily involve only material things, it involves even emotional things. If you're, a good singer and you go to a party and nobody's asking you to sing, and they ask your neighbor to sing instead, and the person sang decently well, they were very good in the rhythm, but maybe not so much in the tune. Praise them for the rhythm, right? Don't be inauthentic. Don't say, even I can sing, maybe sometimes you can say that, but don't feel bad that you weren't picked, right? You can be emotionally abundant for other people. So if you just practice these, you'll discover at the end that actually it makes you very happy. Not just that, it actually improves your life circumstances so that you can become increasingly abundant. Life cooperates with you. Life is now telling you that, oh, you're acting abundant, So let me give you more, and then you can become even more abundant. That's been my discovery, at least.
Sure, I think, and that ties back to the very first thing that we discussed, which is keeping happiness in our awareness, being conscious of it, and prioritizing happiness.
Exactly.
So it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Narita. Appreciate it. Bye.